So I'm going to do a short introduction first so they know who I am and who
Okay,
you are.
okay.
And then when I ask you a question, if you can just answer in a full sentence. So if I say, what is your name? Say, my name is, because I'm going to be cut out later of the questions.
Okay, you just flick or do something to...
I'll remind you.
Okay.
My name is Day Johnson. I'm interviewing Miss Vivian Stevens-Vaughters here in Dayton, Ohio at her sister Ethel Smith's home. The date is August the 17th, 2009. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your full name, and please spell it for me?
Oh, golly. Vivian Jane Stevens-Vaughters.
And remember, complete sentence. My name is.
My name is Vivian, capital Jane, capital Stevens, capital Vaughtters. I've made my mark.
Okay. Can you tell me your date and place of birth?
Okay. Oh, my date is November 25th, 1926 in Chicago, Illinois.
And were you born at home or in a hospital?
I was born at home at that time.
Can you tell me a little bit about your family's ethnic and racial background?
Oh boy. My family is considered black in this day and age, but most of them were fair-skinned. On my mother's side of the family, her mother was white, therefore her children were very close to being pure white. I mean, they were very distinctive. Okay, on my father's side, his father was, just a country farmer, good-natured, and they had fair skin. I guess there were 8 children in that family, and they were brought up to be good kids.
Can you tell me the names of your parents and where they were born and their dates of birth, if you know?
Oh, wow. Let me think. My mother was Marie. Let me start over again. Her name was Edna Marie Bass. She was born in Greenville, Ohio, and here we go. Ethel May, what year was Mom born? 1906. Her parents were Reverend James Edward Bass and his wife Matilda Jane Bass. My middle name is Jane I was named after my grandmother, a little bit.
And how about your father's parents?
My father's parents were in Waterford, Ohio, and they were farmers from many, many years. They had a large family. Okay, his father was Jethro, what else, May? Jethro Stevens. His mother was, I gotta think. Eliza Jane Stevens. She was born in Grafton, West Virginia. They had 7 children and just had a good farm life, I presume, back in those years.
What was Eliza Jane's maiden name before she married the Stevens? Do you know what she was?
Maisie, what was Dalton. Eliza Jane Dalton, right.
And just repeat for me your father's name. Where was he born and when he was born?
Okay, he was William Everett, Evert Stevens. He was born in Waterford, Ohio, and the date of his birth was December 11th, I think 1898, approximately, I think.
Can you tell me the names of your brothers and sisters, where they were born, and their approximate date of birth?
Okay, I'm the oldest one, the oldest child in my family. I was born in 1926. Then my sister Evelyn Virginia Stevens was born. Oh boy, What year was Evelyn born?
28.
1928. Then my sister, Betty Jean Stevens, was born, here we go. She was the first of us to pass away, and it's kind of hard remembering. 29, yeah, 1929. Then my sister Gloria was 1930. Then Ethel May was 1933, and my brother was 1935. They all had the last name Stevens.
What was your brother's name? You didn't mention his
William Edward Stevens. Is that correct, May?
Yes.
Okay. It's named after his grandfather and his father.
Now, what was your husband's name? Where was he born? And what was his date of birth?
Okay. His name was Alans. Alans. Here we go. Alans. I can't remember his middle name. Vaughters, capital Baughtters. And he was born in Virginia. I think he was a month or two old when his family moved up to Baltimore, and then they moved on to Newark, New Jersey. His birth date was February 12th, I believe, 1925.
And how did you meet your husband?
Down at the campus of Ohio University. I went there, I think it was a semester, because I started in February. I went there a semester. My first, what do you call it? Anyway, in the beginning of, here we go. Oh dear. But anyway, I was walking across campus, and here came this black guy walking across. Hi, hello, how are you? And he was Alan H. Waters. He had just arrived there from Newark, New Jersey. He was a veteran, therefore he was entitled to some of the goodies that the veterans got at college campuses. His parents were still living in Newark, New Jersey. What else? He wanted to be, he liked chemistry and that type thing, so he wanted to be professional as far as that goes. So, what else?
What did he do for a living once you guys got married? And
okay, he started work at a chemical place in Dayton. He worked about maybe 6 months or 7 months there. We went to Dayton after we were married. My mother worked at Monsanto Chemical Company, and she was, what's the word I'm looking for? She told those people, my grandson will work for you. So she had worked for, 10, 12, 15 years at Monsanto Chemical Company. So he came down for an interview, and he was hired, and he went to work. And what else can I say?
so this was after he graduated from college?
Yes, he graduated. He had wanted to be a doctor, and he had put in several applications, and he did not get any answers or anything like that. So we were married at the time, and I guess he wanted to show that he could support a wife. So he came on to Dayton and went to work there.
Can you tell us a little bit about when you got married? Like, were you still in school? What was going on?
We were still in school in February 1950, which was a half a semester, before we graduated. And spring break, we went to Cincinnati, Ohio, and got married. Nobody knew about it. We came back to school, and then when we got our diplomas in June, we announced, we're married. One of those silly things.
So you guys lived apart then?
Oh, yeah, he lived in the dorm, and I lived in the dorm. Well, he lived in the, where they had the black students. Well, I mean, none of them even then were in the dorm, and there had been a lot of, what shall I say, commotion maybe, about black students coming to the school and being welcomed with open arms. And then there were places that were accustomed. He couldn't get his hair cut at the barbershop in Athens. So the black kids, and the black men, I should say, at Ohio University just took turns going from room to room cutting each other's hair. And they looked very professional. One of those type things.
Can you tell us anything about how did you come to go to OU?
My mother's sister had lived in Cutler, Ohio, and she went there about 2 years, and it was close. I was at Waterford High School, which was close to Cutler, and then my mother's people were in Dark County, Greenville, Ohio. So we kind of bounced back and forth. But that was, I had attempted to go to Marietta College, and they turned my application down. So I put an application at OU, and I was welcomed, and I went, oh boy, that's where I want to. Anyway, I went to, in getting ready for the February entrance, we all had to send in pictures and all that kind of stuff. And I went to the room that I had been assigned. My roommate arrived, and she was totally petrified. She was not going to stay in that room with me, and bloom, she was gone. She came back to Dayton, Ohio. I was living in Dayton, Ohio at the time. But anyway.
So this was you got assigned a white roommate, and then when she found out you were a person of color, she didn't.
Okay, I was living in Dark County in Greenville at the time, and the guy that took me to Greenville, to the college, color your shoes. And anyway, he came in, he was carrying my luggage and everything. And the people that saw him, I don't know what kind of ideas they got, but he was very friendly, well-behaved and all of that. He put my stuff down. He didn't get out of the school. They came, oh no, oh no, oh no. She's not going to stay in this room. And they moved me to quarters, oh boy. The one that was on the corner, there were already 3 black girls in there, and I made the 4th girl. So they moved my luggage and me over to where these 3 girls were. We had very nice accommodations. But anyway, where they had put me originally, somebody else got that room. And that was, wait a minute, Lindley Hall, I think.
That's Lindley Hall is where they moved you from or to?
What, the one on the corner, I think it's been torn down then. They moved me to Lindley Hall, I believe. And then the one on the corner, it went back to, wait a minute, I'll take it back. Originally, they had sent me to Lindley Hall, but that was taboo. They put me over in Howard Hall, that was the name of it, on the corner where the 3 black girls were already rooming. So there were 4 when I came to college.
Now, were you just coming out of high school when you went to college?
No, I came out of high school. I worked, I graduated from high school in 1944, and I went to OU in 1946, I believe, is where I started. And I was making up my mind what to do, because where I was working, I was laid off or terminated or whatever you want to call it. And I needed something to do, and I decided to go to college. And then I picked out Ohio University because my mother's sister had gone there for about 2 years. So, and it was close to where we were living then in Waterford, Ohio. So I went there. And I can't think of what else happened. But anyway, I got in okay, and everything was friendly after I had my 3 roommates.
What was the racial climate like in Athens when you were attending college there?
Okay, there were a lot of guys who were coming back from service, and oh boy, there were several black guys that enrolled there. The only thing is they couldn't live in the dorms. They were in a place up on the hill from the college. My husband was one of them. He had came from Newark, New Jersey, and then the other guys that were there were primarily from Cleveland area. Cleveland, Akron, Northern Ohio. What else?
What was the racial climate like? What places were you allowed to go to in Athens?
Okay, when they came, which was in 1946, it was just starting about openness for all students. And I know the black guys, they had gone to some of the places where you either get pop or get something, and you could buy it there, but you didn't eat it there. And there were several places along the main street.
Court Street?
I think it was. But just the longer I was there, the black population built up. Also, when we lived in Lindley Hall, there was one gal that was assigned to us. I think that made 5 in the...
Wait, were you in Howard or Lindley?
I was in the corner. Howard Hall's the one on the corner across the street from...
It's not there anymore.
It isn't there anymore. Okay, well, that's where the Howard was situated, and I guess it has been torn down since then. But it was full up, and most of the black students, which were very few, were the girls, let me say that. They were assigned there. But the men that came, they were sent to private homes out in the city. And some of them stayed there. Some of them only lasted a year or whatever. They had other things to do. And primarily the guys that were there, I think, were from the Northern Ohio area. So they went to state school.
What type of things did you do for fun when you were at OU? Like, what were the activities and things that you did?
I don't know. I went to the movies every now and then, and well, I mean, usually they had enough things that interest you that you would be going to. I know we went to the sporting events, and sometimes the black students would cluster out in town and party back. Sometimes we went to those. But just adjusting to the school, well, I mean, you really didn't have a whole lot of free time or anything. And I know in I think it was my second year, my funds were running out. So I looked for a job, and there were 2 years that I stayed in private family rather than live in the dorms, and I helped out there. I don't know how good I did, but I had to walk from the campus back up into town, and I was supposed to serve dinner or dust up or wash dishes or some kind. The women that I worked for had youngsters, one lady had, I think, 2 kids, and nobody had gone to kindergarten, but she had a new baby, and I don't know whether I contributed anything or not, because I wasn't accustomed to little bitty babies, but I did the best that I thought I could do. I don't know.
So you worked as a domestic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And well, I mean, during the summers, I went back to Dayton, and I got a job at McCall Printing Company, and I made a few bucks there, and then I used that to go to school. Then the 2 years that I was there, well, I mean, oh boy, I wish I could think of the English professor's name that I talked with. He had a running joke with me. It was nice, I didn't feel that I was being taken advantage of, let me say that. Come on, Vivian, we want to help you. Will you do this? I mean, I was doing them a favor more so than they were doing me a favor, so we got along very nicely.
So these were white families that you lived in and helped?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So did that give you a lot of time for your schoolwork then?
Oh yeah, I got that done. Sometimes I play or not do it when and then I'd be up all night doing this, getting it done. But it worked out fine.
What were some of the families? Do you remember the names of the families
Oh
that you
boy,
worked for
oh
in
boy,
Athens?
oh boy. One of the ladies had just had a new baby. I wish. Oh shoot. All my stuff, if I kept it, is down in Georgia. I had a 1950s yearbook that we had there, and I'm not sure about what other material I had, but I got along okay. I guess I prefer. Okay, two families that I worked for. I did 1 year, and then the next year there was married students from Europe or so forth that came over, and they took my job. Well, I mean, the wives of these people got these couples from overseas, and I guess the husband did something that helped him with his costs or whatever, and then the wife did something too. And then the next one that I went to, apparently the first couple had done quite well, because the next job I went to, that couple did the very same thing. They had people that came from overseas. Let's see, I think they were foreign born, but they were grasping English and so forth and so on. And they worked it to the second house. I often thought they're chasing me, they're after me.
So how about the Hotel Berry? Did you ever go there?
I had no occasion to go there. There was talk that the owners were black, but they preferred white clientele. And I do not know, I think there was an incident where they were trying to get a barber or get something, and I don't know what was going on, but the black guys had attempted to go to the hotel that was owned by a black guy, and they were turned away. So I don't know, I guess the man probably felt, well, if he catered to blacks, the whites would leave or something. There was still a lot of animosity against the black students there.
Now, was the theater segregated? Could you sit anywhere in the movie theater that you
Didn't have
wanted?
time to go to the theater. They had some freebies in where the pictures are and all of that, in the auditorium, and I think occasionally that you could go there and see a movie and it was a freebie. Maybe it was a dime, I don't know. But I never went to a movie along the main drag there.
Oh, okay.
So it was just just wasn't interested in going to it because there was too much to see outside and to get done.
Where did you go to high school at, in elementary school, in middle school?
I started school in Chicago, Illinois. My father got sick. We moved from Chicago to Waterford, and I was in the 8th grade when we moved to Waterford. That's where I got my 8th grade diploma. Then I went to Greenville, Ohio, where my mother's parents were, and I went 1 year to Palestine High School, which was out in the boondocks. And that's where all of us went at the time. And I was the oldest in my family, so I went to high school, but the rest of them went to grade school.
Now, were the schools that you went to segregated or
No,
integrated?
no. Some of the teachers were extremely friendly to us, but most of the time, we were treated, at least I was, we were treated just like everybody else. And I tried my darndest to get good grades, and I was lucky. I think I got mostly straight A's in school, so I didn't have a whole lot to crab about.
And so you ended up graduating from what school?
Waterford High School.
In what year?
Here we go. Well, that's it. I started to,
1944?
Yeah, I think that was the year. Uh-huh.
And so after you graduated from college, where did you work or what did you do?
Let me think. I got a job at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. In the meantime, my last semester of school, I had gotten married, and it was unknown. And when I got my diploma, hey, here's my marriage license. So I stayed there and worked, and my husband's mother was deathly ill, and he went on back to Newark, and I think she died. We graduated like in June, and she died in December to that effect. And then he was, what happened the next? I think afterward, a couple of months or so after, then I moved out to Newark, and that's where we started married life out there. And I was a little country girl. I didn't like a lot of stuff that went on there. So I'm going back home. I don't like it out here. I went back home. He said, well, if you're going, I'm coming too. So we both went back to Ohio, and that's where it all got started. I'm trying to think what happened.
So how long did you guys live in Newark?
Ah, boy. My Cecily, who was my second child, she was probably 3 months old, and I couldn't vision rearing a child in the atmosphere that we were in. So I had one son and my daughter. And Cecily, I can't even remember when she was born. Don't interview old people. But oh boy, if I were at the other place, I could dig all that stuff out to make sure I was correct. Oh shoot, 50. She probably was born about 1953, so she was maybe 2 months old. I got angry. I'm going back to Ohio, and well, if you're going, I'm going too. So we had old raggedy car, and we moved from New Jersey back to Ohio.
Now, what didn't you like about Newark? What was going on there?
I was not accustomed to it, and the house where we lived on the first floor was Al's brother and his wife. On the second floor was his sister and her husband and 2 or 3 kids, and we had a bedroom with the second floor people, and I just wasn't content. I guess none of my family was there. If I wanted to see anybody, I either had to get on the phone or get in the car and go visit. And his sister was meticulous, and with a little baby, you don't have real clean, spotless stuff to go. And we had a couple discussions, let me say. So like I said, you lose control of the way your life's going, so you have to make a few changes. And I just told him I was going back to Ohio, and I came back, and he said, well, I'm going too. And he came back, and I don't know, it's probably a couple of months maybe that he got the job at some little corner dive that sent out blueprints or something on, I'm not being very accurate, but it was along his expertise or so forth. And he must have worked there maybe a year or a year and a half. And this job at Monsanto opened up. So then he got the job at Monsanto because my mother was so well thought of. I know if he had gone in there by himself, it would have been bye-bye. We don't have anything, but they made a space for him.
Now, was it pretty hard for him to find employment even though he had a college education and a college degree, or?
Things seemed to pop up at easy times, because the first job that he had, he was out hitting the pavement and everything, and I think he had references. Somebody would say, well, Al, why don't you go look here, or something like that. But he got the job at this, how can I say? It was they just manufactured chemical kind of stuff. Well, I mean, right up and so forth. It wasn't a big place. And then he was working for them, and the job at Monsanto opened up. And my mother, I think, was instrumental in that job being given to him because everybody liked Marie. Everybody liked Marie. She was a cook there for, I don't know, 20-some years, I think. So he got a job there, and we just kept living in Ohio.
Now, how many kids did you have? And if you can tell me a little bit about your kids.
I had 5 kids. And the oldest one is, he was very bright. He had good background. But he went to high school, and he wanted to be like the high school kids. But anyway, he got a scholarship to Ball State University, and he graduated from Ball State, let me say that, and he owed them a lot of money. At first he got, what's the word, scholarship. And I guess by him being away from mom and dad and over there with the party kids, he had a good, but he did graduate, and now he's been in Buffalo, New York as he goes out on cases getting information. What do you call, see, my brain is not doing, but he's a reporter, and he's been there, Lordy, 20 years, I guess. So he's done quite well there.
What's his name?
Alan. A-L, he goes by Al. He didn't like, his father's name was A-L-A-N-S. His father cut the S, so Al cut the S. And anyway, it wound up, he went by the name Al. And then my daughter Cecily, she was the bright one. She got a job at OU in all 4 years. She didn't ask for a penny from mom and dad. And she graduated high up on the scale. She didn't join a sorority or anything, but she was just a good student. So anyway, she went on to, where'd she go, law school? Georgetown. But she had gone to D.C., she got a job there, and I'm trying to think, I don't know how many years she was in D.C., but she got married while she was in D.C. We went to one of the historic buildings when her marriage occurred, and we had friends from all over the United States that came to see Cecily married and all of that kind of stuff. So she worked, I don't know how, it wasn't too long, but she did work there for a few months, or it might have been a few years, before she and her husband moved to California. And Langston, her son was, where was he? He was born in the vicinity where she was working. Oh dear, here we go. Anyway.
And then you said you had 5, so you have Alan, Cecily, and then who's next?
Benson, and he's a dentist.
Okay.
He went to Meharry, and Mama didn't have to give him a penny. He was enrolled in Meharry. He worked, made his own way, got his degree, and then came on to where we're living now and started his business, his dental office. He's by himself. And we do it my way or we don't do it. And I don't think he can have anybody working for him because he's just so particular.
And then who's after Vincent?
Jonathan is the next one, and that's the one that I live with, he and his wife, and they're in, oh Lord, here we go. Stone Mountain, Georgia, yeah. Let me see how that worked out. He built a house. I'm trying to think where oh shoot, turn it. He and Vanessa was an only child, and her parents doted on her. She's a very nice young lady. She's perfect. She's a good wife, let me just say that. And they have 3 kids, and the oldest one, Jonathan Jr., he's not Junior, but he's Jonathan, and he just started the college last week. Oh dear, where's he going? Oh, I can't think right now. I hate to give you wrong information.
And so after him, who's the last one? Who's the last kid?
That's Robert. He's the one in Chicago. And I'm going to do it my way or I ain't going to do it. So he's kind of, don't tell me to do nothing. He's been in Chicago. Where was it? Where he was in Dayton. And he just tries to be secretive and be his own person. He got angry with me about something, and next thing I knew, he was in Chicago. And he was on the front page of the newspaper where he was walking in a line protesting something that had happened to some of his friends or some particular group. Let's see. He's what's the word? He's going to do it his way or he's not going to do it. So he's been hanging out by himself. And he has three kids, I think. He and his wife are divorced, but he's just very, very independent. You don't tell me what to do. And that's that.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you know about your family's history? Do you know where they lived before they came to Ohio or how they got here to Ohio?
My father's father.
And tell me whether this is the Stevens or the Bass side.
Okay, this is Stevens right now. And he's the one that lived at Waterford, Ohio. And he had a lumber mill or something that he made his money on. I know we would go visit him, and every time he had to grind something or something, you kids get away, don't come close to me. You know, I don't want you to get hurt, one of those things. Oh dear. My father was born in 1898, and he was the 6th of 7 kids, I think. So they went back, I guess, about 1850 or something like that. Ethel May, where'd she run? She in there sleep, I bet you. May!
What?
Come and help me on this stuff with the families. About Grandpa Stevens and them, some of the details.
I think they were from Maryland
Oh, really?
originally.
I learned something today. Oh. But we used to go from Chicago down there to visit and so forth, and I can remember we went down, anyway, I was probably 2, 3 years old and the house burned down. So my father and everybody went back to Chicago, and anyway, my grandfather built a new house. And right after that, his wife died, and then he remarried some lady from West Virginia or something. Anyway, she came and she brought her 2 granddaughters. She had 2 workers, and she was kind of hefty, so she didn't get a lot done. But her daughters, they were doing farm work like you never saw it done. They were excellent.
This was your grandfather.
My father's father.
Your father's father. So your grandfather was married to one woman and then she died after the fire. And what was her name?
What was her name, May?
Eliza Jane.
Eliza Jane.
And then he married Frances.
Uh-huh.
So this is an aside, not for them. That's how you guys are the kids from the first wife.
Correct.
Yes.
And then Polly is the kid from the second wife.
No, first wife.
Oh, Polly's from the first wife too?
Okay, her father was a son to he was a brother to
Your
father, right. There were how many kids? 5 kids? 6?
Polly's.
Yeah. No. Her parents, Uncle Lauren and Uncle Theodore and Uncle
There was about
Oscar.
7 of them.
7 of them. Okay.
Okay. That was an aside.
Yeah, okay, I know.
Can you tell me a little bit about Waterford, Ohio, what you know?
It was just a farm area, and we went there to school. And we moved from Chicago. My father got sick. He had gotten stuff down in his lungs and he was dying. And anyway, he left his job in Chicago and went down to Waterford. And I don't know how long he lasted. I don't think he lasted a year. But we all moved there. And it was just an old country place. I mean, my grandfather was still living. And let's see, Daddy died 39, and Grandpa died about 42 or something like that. So anyway, Grandpa was still able to have a little money coming in. And at that time, let's see, my mother moved down there and took all of us kids. What happened? She made an appeal for financial help from, oh, shoot. Let me think. But anyway, she hadn't lived in Ohio long enough, so she didn't get a penny. And she got out doing, scrubbing walls and earning money, and we stayed there while she brought in a little bit of money anyway. And of course, we had gardens, and it went that way. I think it's going to the hospital over here. But anyway, she managed to keep us together, and after my father died, she moved us back to her parents, Grandma Bass and her father. And her father was a brother to the DeSoto Bass that's being celebrated now here in another few weeks or so.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about where your mother's from?
She was from Greenville, Longtown, Ohio, we call it. And boy, when we first started going there, what I remember, there's a church over here and there's a schoolhouse over here. Okay, we got 4 corners. Along here, they had a place where people sold stuff if you needed it out in the country. Then you cut the corner and you go down there and there's a big old house down there. People lived in there. And if this store didn't have what they wanted, you go over to this store and get it. But primarily, they were all self-sufficient. Well, I mean, they didn't have to ask for too many things. And here we go, how can I say it? Oh, shoot. Grandpa Bass had, well, how many brothers? DeSoto Bass was one of them. The 2 of them became ministers.
And what church was this that your grandfather was a minister of?
It was close to where he lived, but at that time, he was sent to various churches. He was in Parkersburg, West Virginia for several years. And at that time, I think he was just, wherever the people that be in the church sent him, that's where he went.
And what denomination was this?
Methodist church.
AME or not AME?
It's not AME, I don't think, because there's 2 churches right here together. This one on the corner is the one where my grandfather preached. This other one was where the other folks that didn't believe with him, where they went to church.
So there was 2 churches.
2 churches within stone's throw almost.
And do you know how long your family had been in Longtown, your mom's family?
Well, my grandfather was born there. Oh. So apparently Grandpa Bass was...
So were they one of the original settlers of
Yeah. His parents had come there from... was that from Virginia? North Carolina. Grandpa Bass's relatives had come and settled there.
And then you talked about an event that happened in West Virginia with a man named Ralph who was related to you.
That was my mother's brother.
Can you tell us a little bit
Okay,
about that?
he was a tall, handsome man. I can't help but say that. He must have been 6'2" or 3", and he would play with us kids like he was this size, but he was always very entertaining and so much fun and everything. Okay, he got married. He was 24, 25. Where did he go? Louisville, Kentucky. Then he and his wife had a spat. Where was he killed, May?
Parkersburg,
Parkersburg, West
West
Virginia. So he left his wife. He came to Parkersburg, and he was working as
A bellhop?
a bellhop behind the counter. If somebody wanted liquor, he'd get it and so forth. But he always managed to be smiling and cracking jokes and all that kind of stuff. And he must have said something to her, but a man came in that store and said he had messed with his wife. Kapow, kapow. And he killed him right there. He was about 20, what was he, about 26, 27, 29? Okay.
Do you know what hotel he was working at where this happened?
It was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, that's all. But anyway, he was killed. How close to?
just a few days after Daddy,
Okay,
in September of 39.
okay. So there's the information.
So your dad had died from the lung disease.
Right,
And then
right.
a
And
few
then
days
Uncle
later-
Ralph was killed, yeah.
And was this a white woman that he was messing with, a black woman, or that they said he had talked
It was
to?
someone's wife. The man got jealous and was foolish and everything. And his wife, I don't think Uncle Ralph was messing with her because she wasn't worth it. Well, I mean, she just didn't look good, or anything. But apparently something had happened, either conversation or just the two of them working together or something. But he came to the job and pow, pow, I got you. And he killed my uncle right there. And that happened just after my father had died.
So this was a Ralph Stevens.
No,
No.
Ralph Bass. My mother was Bass.
Okay.
DeSoto Bass. My grandfather was James Bass, and Uncle Ralph was James's son, the youngest son. No, there was one other that was younger than him. But, oh, wow. Anyway.
Can you tell us anything else about the settlements? Like, what role, since your grandfather was a preacher, did religion play in your everyday lives?
I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. I remember we lived in Chicago, and of course on the holidays you come down and you visit your parents. So Grandpa Bass, every time, come on darlings, you got to come up here and sing for me. We probably about like that. And that's what I remember. I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. We'd go up there and sing and snap fingers, and that was about it. I think that was before Ethel May's time.
And so, what brought your family to Chicago? Why did your parents move to Chicago?
Okay, my father, the job he had in Zanesville, the whole, they all moved to Chicago, and he moved there. And, let me see. I think that's where he was working when he met my mother, I think now. No, that doesn't sound right. But she graduated from Zanesville High School, and she was 18 years old. And I think they got married within a month of when she graduated. So the two of them then went on to Chicago and started a life there together.
Now, the towns that you grew up in, were they integrated or segregated? Were they mostly people of color, or was it a mix of people, or what was
And we lived in Chicago, and I can remember there were people from all over. Well, I mean, we lived, okay, I was born in Loomis Boulevard in Chicago, but there were people that had just come to Chicago in droves. And my mother and father were there, and people across the street were from Alabama, and somebody down there was from Mississippi, and most of them were black. But down the street from us, there was a big old brick building, very attractive, and there were a lot of so-called good-looking white folks, and they all lived there. I don't think there were any black people in that particular house. Everybody got along very well. We had a bunch of kids that their parents were from Ohio, and they had the Ohio Club, and we'd have a picnic in the summertime at one of the parks someplace. And that they just seemed to be very closely knit. If you were from Ohio, you my pal, one of those things.
How about in Waterford? Was the town made up of mostly people of color, or was it?
No. That's where my father's family and so forth grew up, and they all left Water. I think except maybe my father's fathers, so forth. And the white folks bought up a bunch of land around there. My Uncle Oscar, he had his own farm. Polly and them's Father May. Uncle Lauren, he bought a farm there. And who else? But anyway, it was kind of spread out. But everybody was there. And I remember when we lived down there, my mother had this old putt-putt. And we go to church on Sunday and zigging and zagging and zooming. And I couldn't find a place if I had to now, to know where we went. But everybody had these zinger-zing phones. And if you got in trouble or you needed help or something, you just got on the phone and called them. They'd hitch up the horse or something and come and see how they could help you out. Very friendly.
How about in Longtown? What was it like there? What was the makeup of the town? Was it mostly people of color, or?
It was people of color, but everybody looked like they were white. And there was a couple of families that moved up there from down south, Kentucky or wherever, that were dark, and they stood out. But there was no, what's the word? They got along. They did fairly well. But my grandfather, now he was, and my grandmother was white, and she had this white hair and so forth, and they were the so-called leaders of the area or something. And I can remember we lived with them off and on several different times, and people would come there to get married, and Grandpa would open the doors to the parlor and take them on in there and marry them and sign the little thing, and away they went. And then we had relatives that maybe came back to visit, and they would have chicken and dumplings that my grandmother was known for. Aunt May, you got to make us some chicken and dumplings, and they'd come for Sunday dinner.
Oh, okay.
So.
But your grandmother was white.
Yeah, she was white.
Okay. And then she married Edward. Right?
James Edward.
James Edward.
Bass, yeah, that was our grandfather.
Now, where was she from, your grandma?
Maisie, where was Grandma Bass from?
Red Key, Indiana.
Red Key, Indiana.
So how did they meet?
Don't ask me.
No.
I don't know.
Do you know how their marriage was looked upon? Did they have
They
trouble?
were compatible. Well, I mean, anything that he wanted, she saw that he got it. Well, I mean, she was a wife in the spirit that most wives were accepted back in those days. If he had told her to jump in the river, she'd go jump in the river. But she was a good woman, and she knew how to cook, and she was very helpful. And I only think after she got older, she had a rocking chair, and she'd get in that rocking chair, and she'd rock and chew gum, rocking. And we used to make these sly remarks, about them and everything. But we got along okay. Sometimes we'd get on her nerves, I know. But
did they have any trouble being an interracial couple, or no, not at all?
Not at all.
What was her maiden name?
Hill.
And you said she's from?
May, what was Grandma's full name?
Matilda Jane Hill.
Matilda Jane Hill.
And you said she's from Red Key, Indiana?
That's what Ethel May said. I don't think I ever knew where she was from.
Can you just tell us a little bit about, did you ever hear about slavery growing up, or any of your relatives being enslaved?
You couldn't escape it. Well, I mean, somebody had a cousin or a sister or something back 2 or 3 generations that may have been a slave or something. But in that area of Longtown, nobody would accept, I don't think, that they had been a slave or even connected to slaves. And most of them were very fair, white-looking people, but they were black because they had black blood. So,
So what if anything did you hear about slavery growing up?
no, I didn't hear very much, really, other than what they may have taught in the school books, you know. And I know my classes, they hip-hopped over that fairly quickly. So,
You talked a little bit about the settlement of Waterford and Longtown. Do you know of any other settlements where it was mostly people of color that lived here in Ohio?
Barlow, Maisie, where are some people?
Burlow, Cutler, Burnett Ridge. That's about it.
Did you ever hear about the Underground Railroad growing up?
Yeah, I heard about. Well, I mean, I read about it a lot of times. We'd go to the library and maybe they'd have something there and we'd snitch and read it. Didn't know a bit more after we read it than before, but you could get the information.
Now, did you ever hear about Underground Railroad activity in Waterford or in Longtown?
Not really. There's a place close to here. What's the name of that place over in Indiana, Ethel May, that was supposed to have drawn people that had slaves or Fountain City that would.
Coffin's place.
Oh, okay, I know.
Uh-huh.
Like
But that was about the extent of it.
Oh, okay. How much?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay.
Oh,
Can you tell me any types of discrimination, or were you affected by the civil rights movement? Do you think? Did you ever experience discrimination besides, of course, you mentioned the thing at Lindley, but were there other incidents of discrimination that you remember?
no, I remember we were living here in Dayton, and my sister Betty, who was the third child, got a job at, what was it, Home Store downtown, and she worked there about a week, and somebody went in there and said, you know, you got a nigger working here, and put the finger on her, and she lost her job that day. But it's just small talk that went on. There was a lot of it, but I think I learned more about it after I left the area than was talked about while I was in the area. So
Now, you mentioned that there's a lot of fair-skinned people.
extremely, they look like they're white folks, but they're black.
Now, did anybody pass or go as white? Do you remember growing up, or did most of the people?
Yeah, there were. What was Richard Burton's last name?
Burton.
Yeah.
Burton.
Anyway, they passed for white.
Where were they from here?
They were from Longtown up there, and they went to Greenville. And, well, I mean, they were fair-skinned. If you didn't know, you'd swear up and down they were white. But because we were associated with them, they had colored blood in them. But anyway, they just got real snooty. No, is that the word? Anyway, they were too good to associate with kids that they had grown up with. So you just...
Do they still live in the Greenville area?
Yeah, they're in Greenville.
But they go as
And
white
their
now?
kids have all grown and they married white.
Oh,
So they crossed over.
they crossed over. Now, was that unusual for people to do?
You know, if they could get away with it, they did it. Who was Patterson's? Yeah, F. May's favorite cousin. He did the same. He's not living too far from here. He married white and had 4 or 5 white kids. And
he goes as white now?
I assume that he does. The last time I saw him, what did he do? He came to the house and did some work for Mom. What was that?
Antenna on the house. TV antenna.
Haven't seen or heard of him since then. But
And how was he was related through the Bass side, or?
yeah, he's our first cousin.
Oh.
His mother was my mother's sister. So he wanted us to get away from us.
Why do you think that people did choose to cross over, as you say?
You just had better opportunities. Well, I mean, the black question existed back then as well as it does now. And they would go pass for white or get something with a group of white people, and therefore that made them white. So,
And you mentioned your sister Betty. When she got hired at that job, they thought she was white?
sure they did.
Oh.
But somehow or other they found out, since she worked in a department store, somebody probably came in there and just passed the word, you got a nigger working for you, or that gal is cold, or something like that. But they came and fired her right now.
And this was in a department store in Dayton?
Mm-hmm. Elder Behrman's.
Oh,
Elder Behrman's way back then. And they were downtown. Where, at the homes, where was this, May? She moved away. But it was in the downtown shopping area. And she was just out of high school. She was a good-looking girl, I have to say. She was very nice looking. She went on down there. Of course, her hair was nappy.
What year was this?
Oh, Lordy. I can't think right now. But she had just gotten out of high school, and you know how the kids go around looking for jobs and everything. She got this job. And somebody spied on her or made them see their mistake or whatever.
Is there anything you would like to add that I haven't asked
Oh,
you
boy.
so
My
far?
brain is full of garbage right now. I can't think. No. Well, I mean, it's been a journey that just about every black person in this country has had to deal with and probably will continue to deal with. I mean, things are smoothing out, and the future seems brighter than maybe 40, 50 years ago. But you just do the best you can. That's all I can say.
Now, what would you say was the biggest difference between living in rural areas versus when you moved to the urban areas? Because you came from a urban area to
Yeah,
a
in
rural
Chicago,
area.
right.
What was the biggest change?
When we were in Chicago, the steel mill that was in Zanesville had moved to Chicago, and most of the people in Chicago were people we had known in Zanesville, and the little kids played with the little kids, and the grown-ups went to work for this company in the